Welcome back to the channel. I'm Colin and this is a review of the Kiwi Ears Etude IEMs. It's a set of tri-brid IEMs that retails for $119. And in fact, this is a set I like a lot, especially considering the price. The Kiwi Ears Etude features a beryllium dynamic driver, a single high-frequency BA driver, dual ultra-high-frequency BA drivers, and a vibration transducer driver. These are not hard to drive, but has a super low impedance of 5 ohms, which may challenge some less powerful sources. I'll list the specs on the screen now if you want to take a look. Now let's talk about the unboxing experience. So here's the box set that Etude comes in. Packaging is simple and minimalistic. After opening the box, you'll see the Etude. It comes with the same zippered pouch as the Aeroso. Inside the pouch, you'll find the mini jack 2-pin cable and the ear tips. There are 3 types of silicone tips included, with a total of 9 pairs. A good variety of tips to choose from. There are also the same tips from the Aeroso. Now onto the build of the Etude. The Etude has a nicely decorated resin faceplate surrounded by what should be an aluminum bezel. The shell and nozzle of the IEMs are made out of a gray transparent resin. The nozzle is integrated into the shell as you can see here. You can actually see the crossover and the drivers inside it. The shells are relatively large in order to fit the transducer driver. An interesting thing with the Etude is that when you tap it, you kind of feel the driver vibrating, kind of like when you're tapping a Switch controller. You feel it continue to ring after you tap it. The cable is a standard twisted 2-pin cable with a mini jack. It's the same one that came with the Aeroso. Nothing spectacular, but gets the job done. Comfort-wise, I find the same problem as the Aeroso. It's probably due to the specific shape of my ears, but the Etude just wouldn't seal with silicone tips with my ears. So I ended up using foam tips. The isolation is very good on the Etude. Here's the frequency response graph of the Etude. I've linked it in the description below if you want to compare it to other IEMs I reviewed. The Etude has a frequency curve that seems to be tuned towards the IEF neutral target with an around 8 to 9 decibel bass shelf. An interesting characteristic is that it has an artifact at around 150 Hz, a sharp spike at the mid bass. It's probably due to the reverb of the shell caused by the vibration driver. Before we talk about the sound, you might be wondering if you could actually feel the vibration from the vibration driver in your ears. For me, I would say no. I can hear the vibration driver working, but I cannot actually feel it vibrate like you would imagine in a gaming controller or your phone vibrating. With the volume cranked up to 11, I can barely feel it vibrating in my hands. So playing music at normal volumes, I don't think I can actually feel it vibrating when wearing them. The Etude has a mild V-shaped sound with lifted bass and treble. It does have a sense of warmth to the mid-bass and lower treble. The bass of the Etude does have a special characteristic to it. Even though it doesn't have a huge amount of bass boost to it, the bass sounds denser and fuller than what you would typically hear in other dynamic driver IEMs. There is a kind of tactility to it, which probably is the result of the vibration transducer doing its work. I think it's most apparent in sustained bass notes like from a bass guitar. You can hear it in drums or kick drums, but the texture the vibration transducer adds is most felt or heard in sustained bass notes. I really enjoy listening to the bass guitar using the Etude. I think it sounds more organic and texture rich. It might not be the most neutral, but I enjoy it, and I think it adds to the enjoyment. Sometimes you will also hear unnatural vibrations or bass in lower male vocals. It's especially apparent when you're listening to the radio or podcasts where there's no background music. It is weird and unnatural, but rarely noticeable in actual music. The mids of the Etude is relatively neutral. I can hear that sometimes the vibration transducer working on the lower mids. So there is some weight added to the lower mids, like deep male vocals, lower notes in the piano, the reverb of an acoustic guitar body, etc. For those types of music, there's an added depth and tonal weight, but it doesn't sound muddy or overly thick, just a slight touch of added note weight. For the mid-range and upper mid-range that does not involve the vibration transducer, I think it sounds very neutral with a slight forwardness in vocals. The resolution is quite good and it can nicely present the details in instruments. Female vocals sound nice and crisp. I think the tonal balance is more on the drier and cleaner side. The treble is well controlled and tamed. It's quite detailed but does not seem bright. I think it is tuned quite well. There is also a good amount of air and decay in percussion instruments that you can get from well-tuned BA drivers. The resolution in the treble is good for the price. Similar to the upper mids, the treble presents a drier and cleaner sound signature. The soundstage width of the Etude is just pretty normal and standard. I don't consider it to be wide, but the left and right stereo imaging is presented quite well. The imaging, soundstage depth, and center imaging is also just fair, about what you would expect from a $100 IEM. The Etude is not considered a technical IEM in my opinion, but still does decently well in this compartment. Doesn't fall behind when compared with IEMs around the price bracket. Comparing the Aeroso with the Etude, the first thing that I noticed is that the passive isolation on the Etude is much better. So keep that in mind if you're using them on the go. The timbre between the two is surprisingly similar, with the Aeroso having a little more bite in the upper mids and treble region, giving you a better sense of clarity. The soundstage of the Aeroso also sounds slightly deeper than the Etude. For the bass, it sounded to me that the Aeroso had more bass, but the bass on the Etude sounded tighter and more tactile. While in comparison, the Aeroso's bass sounded slightly muddy. For your reference, I used foam tips when trying both of these, as I couldn't get a good seal with silicone tips. Personally, I like the Etude better for music. But if you do listen to podcasts or consume other types of media other than music with the IEMs, I would lean towards the Aeroso. Comparing the Lush to the Aeroso, I can immediately hear that the Lush has better separation and clarity throughout the frequency range. The stage sounds deeper and wider by quite some margin, although that is to be expected as the Lush is around 50% more expensive than the Etude. The bass is quicker and deeper on the Lush, but the Etude has a sense of scale in the bass. It kind of wraps around you and sounds like it comes from a larger surface. Overall, the Lush is a technically superior IEM, but it is also brighter, while the Etude is warmer sounding and less fatiguing. Now let's talk about the cons of the Etude. It should give you a better idea if the Etude is for you or not. First, the Etude is not a neutral IEM, and is not for those looking for a neutral IEM. There is quite a lot of coloration from the vibration transducer that will boost certain lower mid notes. Second, the tip options will be fairly limited with the Etude. Since the nozzle is integrated into the shell and there are no ridges on the resin nozzle, some tips may slide out more easily when used with the Etude. In summary, I think the Etude is a truly unique and fun budget IEM. It's not often that there's a standout feature on budget IEMs. And I think the Etude definitely has one, thanks to its transducer driver. I think it definitely stands out from the rest of the competition around the $100 mark. The Etude is one of those IEMs that will urge you to browse through your music library and listen to what the vibration transducer does to different tracks. Personally, I really enjoyed my time with them. I don't consider the Etude as a neutral IEM, but it's one that you don't get tired of easily and could use for long periods. So if you're looking for an IEM that can provide you with a fun or a different experience, I would definitely recommend the Etude. So this is the end of the review. Please let me know if you have any questions about the Etude. If you enjoyed this review, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you for watching.